Welcome, everyone, to the American Tertius Association of DC's Young Cultural Ambassadors Program. Tonight, our session will be on study abroad programs. We have two speakers, Brian Leopold and Tejas Muthusamy. Brian Leopold is a program coordinator for the National Security League Initiative for Youth, the administrative team. Also titled NSLIY, Brian organizes post-program activities for NSLIY alumni and has been on the team for 3 years. Prior to working at this organization, Brian was a Peace Corps volunteer teaching English abroad. Tejas Muthusamy is a high school senior from Richmond, Virginia, who participated in the NSLIY summer program in Bursa, Turkey. In his free time, he loves to learn languages, try food from different cuisines, and volunteer for political campaigns, Right now, we will hear from them about study abroad programs from NSLIY.
Okay, well, thank you all for having us here and letting us talk about this wonderful opportunity that hopefully you all may be interested in. We're going to talk a little bit about the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, a program for high school students to learn critical languages abroad in both the summer and across the academic year. So we'll talk about the program a little bit. I'm really lucky to have Tejas here, as you heard, who went on the program and is now an alumni representative of the program and can really speak about being in Turkey and experiencing it through our program. So we'll do both of that. We'll talk about the program, talk about the experience in Turkey in particular for all of you. And then we'll open it up to questions that you may have about the program or anything in particular with the program. So without any further ado, we'll begin. So, okay, first, just an overview of the program. What is, and we like to call it NSLI. That's kind of our terminology for it, NSLIY. So NSLI is a program designed to teach American students these really critical foreign languages. So the State Department, the US State Department, was the one who created this program back in 2006. And they created it because they felt like there weren't enough young Americans learning some specific languages that the US and the US government find really critical for Americans to know. Turkish is one of those languages. So they felt like there weren't enough Americans knowing this. So they really wanted to teach young Americans how to learn these languages, and with the hope that they would use them in their careers or in their futures and stay connected with those cultures that they studied abroad in. So this program takes high school students, again, ages 15 to 18, overseas for either the summer. So the summer program would be about 6 weeks, or an academic year-long program, which would be 8 to 10 months. And when you're there, you're studying the language almost every single day in a very critical and immersive environment. So you have your language classes every day, and then of course you're in the community, so you're speaking that language all the time. So we really hope that after that, students' language proficiencies really expand and grow. So that's really the goal of it. Turkish is one of our programs, but we have 8 programs altogether. So we have Arabic, Chinese, Mandarin, Hindi, Indonesian, Korean, Persian, which is in Tajikistan. So specifically, it's the dialect of Tajiki, Russian, and then of course Turkish. And like I said here, it's an academic year-long program, 8 to 10 months, or a summer program, 6 to 8 weeks, normally around 6 weeks. And you have the option of choosing which one you want to go on. So eligibility. The first of our eligibility requirements is that you have to be a US citizen. This is a scholarship program. So this is a US government scholarship program. So it's American students that are going abroad. 15 to 18 years old at the start of the program. There are specific exact age ranges. So definitely check that out on our website if you're close to one of those ages. And you have to be in high school at the time of applying to the program. You have to have over a 2.5 GPA average. But that's, if you have over that, it's nothing specific. Like, so it doesn't matter if it's a 2.5 or a 4.0. We just want to make sure that you have that cutoff grade to be able to go on the program. And like I said, enrolled in high school at the time of the application, and then not an immediate family member of the Department of State, USAID, or any of the administering organizations. So if you have any questions about that, you can always ask us, and we can try to clarify that for you. There are a few other requirements, not too many more, so you can check those out on our website, which I'll share with all of you later. And like I said, this is a merit-based scholarship. So really, everything you do basically is paid for by the US government, the US State Department. Really, the only cost to be able to go on this program would be the cost of a passport if you don't have a passport yet. And we do require a physical, so like a medical exam, to be able to go on the program. Other than those two things, flight, study, room and board, everything while you're in Turkey or whatever country is paid for through the scholarship. Oh, and I'm not sure if any of you, if you're already studying the language through this program, but previous language study is not a requirement. And we are able to take, students that are all the way from complete beginners to more advanced speaking students of the language as well. Okay, so kind of jumping into what is NSLI and what would you expect on a program. There are really three key components of NSLI. And here we have intensive language study. So first and foremost, this is a language study program. So you definitely will be doing a lot of studying. Cultural discovery. So, seeing the sites, seeing what the culture has to offer while you're there, and then cross-cultural friendships. So we'll dive into these three components right now, Tejas and I.
All right, so starting a little bit with the intensive language study part of the program, even though you're going to a new country and experiencing the culture and doing all that fun stuff, NSLI is first and foremost a language study program, and so that's sort of going to be the cornerstone of any program that you do go on, no matter what language you do end up choosing. Summer programs, as Brian said, are 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks long. And those will have around 120 hours of language study total. And then academic year programs range, but will normally be around 10 hours a week. When I was in Turkey, we had languages, when I was in Turkey over the summer, I should say, we had language classes for about 4 to 5 hours a day on the weekday. And since we were there for 6 weeks, about 30 days were spent in class, 5 hours a day, of course. And even though it sounds kind of daunting now, I promise you they'll work with you. They understand that like just sitting in one place for 5 hours isn't necessarily going to be the most useful thing. So in our language classes, we had constant breaks. We did little interactive activities with our different language learning key partners, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And so I think, don't be daunted by this language study. It's definitely really, really useful. And this intensive language teaching really helps you grow in the language. Whereas I started off my NSLI Turkish experience knowing absolutely no Turkish, not even knowing how to say hi. And then when I left, I was able to reach some sort of intermediate proficiency and at least understand maybe half of what was said around me. So I definitely think this is probably my favorite part of the program.
Great. And Tejas will jump into a little bit more on detail on this in just a bit. So the second part is cultural learning, like I said. So a lot of times either after classes or on the weekends, you'll do some really cool cultural activities. So some of those may be going on an excursion and seeing a site in the local area. Like for instance here, these students at the bottom were in Jordan studying Arabic, and they went on a cultural excursion there. It could be like learning to dance the local culture, or make food, or some sort of drawing or painting. But there are a lot of different ways to be immersed in the culture. And this is something that, students say that they have a really good time and really enjoy doing. So it is very study intensive, but we try to balance that out with some really cool cultural activities too.
The next really interesting part of the NSLI experience is cross-cultural friendships. So this includes first living with a host family, and all students, no matter what language you select, do live in a host home at some point. For me in Turkey, it was all 6 weeks. The day I landed in Bursa, Turkey, which is a small-ish city, an hour outside of Istanbul. I was met with my host family. So it's very immediate. And with those host families, you get a real understanding of the culture and you feel like a part of the family. And I think what's really great about staying with the host family as opposed to staying in a hotel or in a college dorm is that you really don't feel like a tourist and you feel like you're being integrated in the culture. And I think that's really important because a lot of the learning that I had outside of the classroom was with my host family when we would eat dinner and they would teach me all of the different aspects of Turkish cuisine, or when I would go with my host brothers to school and they would show me what their school day looked like, what their school looked like, and I learned a little bit more about the Turkish education system. And so all those things are really, really integral to the program. And your host, and I'm still in contact with my host brothers today, and a lot of my friends are still in contact 2 years out with their host family. So you really build a huge bond. There are also opportunities for meeting local high school students across your NSLI program. So for me, in Bursa, Turkey, and I'll show you pictures on that on the next slide, but there were peer tutors basically who were fluent Turks, or people who were fluent in Turkish, native Turks, I should say. And they were able to teach us Turkish while we taught them English. And it was a really interesting cultural exchange because they were all our host siblings, but we got to meet each other and learn languages from each other as well. And that there's some form of that across all 8 programs.
Yeah, definitely.
And then moving on to my specific NSLI experience, like I said before, I was a Turkish summer participant in the summer of 2019, so 2 years ago, in Bursa, Turkey, which is a city, I think about like 4 million maybe outside of Istanbul. It's really, really beautiful. Definitely Google pictures of it. It's really pretty. It's right next to the Sea of Marmara, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but it's right next to a beautiful coastline with some mountains surrounding it. I remember when I would get on the subway to go to school, I could just see the mountains rising behind me, which was really, really cool. And so it's a really pretty city. And you can see at the top right picture, that's my host family I was talking about earlier. There's my 2 host brothers, Gruzgar and Doruk. And I sort of felt really, really included by the family. It was really, really great. So 2 real memorable experiences that I took away from the NSLI program. First are the language partners that I talked about earlier. Every week we would get together, basically all of the students, all the Americans, and then all of our Turkish host siblings would get together and we would just exchange language tips. We would talk about our days. We would have to speak in Turkish, which was really hard at the beginning, but got a little bit easier as we went on. And we did a bunch of activities as well. And I made some really good lifelong friends. And then another really, really important part of NSLI experiences that varies depending on what program you go to are cultural excursions. So we got to do a good number of different activities. On the bottom right, on the bottom right picture, you can see me sort of in front of a tray of water. I was doing what's called ebru, which is like a Turkish water marbling thing where you drop paint into water and then you like move it around and then you put paper on it and remove it and it comes into or develops into a really cool painting, which I thought was interesting. We also went up Mount Uludağ, which is like the big mountain in Bursa, and we went on a little rail car there. We got to learn about what the villages are like outside of Bursa, which was also really interesting and really added to the culture as well. The benefit of my exchange experience, there are three main benefits that, again, I took away. First is that cross-cultural communication. So even though, unfortunately, I have lost some of my Turkish just because I haven't been keeping up with it like I should, the communication skills that I did take away were learning how to talk to people who I didn't know the language fluently with. They like learning nonverbal hand gestures, learning what's okay in certain cultures and what's wrong in certain cultures that would be fine in ours, was definitely something that I will take away. Being a little bit more sympathetic to people in various cultures that you don't really know exactly has definitely been a really, really important experience for me back home. Another thing is lifelong friends. So you become really, really close with the people in your cohort of Americans because if you think about it, you're plunged into an environment where you don't know the language, you don't know anybody else really, like the Americans you met maybe 2 days prior, and you definitely don't know anybody else in the country. And so you bond really, really quickly. And like I said earlier, you become really good friends with the other Turkish people that you meet because, as I'm sure you sort of experienced already, Turkish people are very, very hospitable and they're very, very nice. And you know, they welcome me with open arms. And then last but not least is spark the love of Turkish culture. So, you know, whether you do choose to apply to the NSLI Turkish program or one of the other 7 languages, you'll fall in love with the culture and with the language, and really gain a greater understanding. Like for me, with Turkish in particular, I gained a much, much better understanding of the Middle East and, you know, Turkish politics and Turkish culture. And it's a really, really important region of the world. And so I'm really grateful for NSLI for teaching me a little bit about that. And then last but not least is my favorite target language word or phrase, kind of cheated a little bit here. It's hoş geldin, which means welcome. And I think for me, that sort of encapsulates my NSLI experience and the NSLI experience of a lot of people who went on different programs as well. Because a lot of them, like you might be a little bit wary of going to a country halfway across the world without your parents or your siblings or your friends back home. And I was a little wary as well, but it definitely was an amazing experience because it forced me to step outside my comfort zone. And I was met with nothing but help. I'll never forget on the first week I was in Turkey, I knew no Turkish. I got a nosebleed and it was really bad in the middle of the street. And I was wandering, trying to figure out, you know, where to go, what to do. But I think, you know, but I met a Turkish person who was so kind and helped me through it and helped me find a hospital and everything was okay. But I think that sort of experience really encapsulates what NSLI is about. It's about learning and it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and making lifelong connections. And then next is the NSLI Alumni Association. So your NSLI journey isn't over when the program ends. In fact, honestly, like I say, it just begins. There's a really, really strong NSLI alumni community across the US and across the world. So I'm personally the NSLI alumni rep for the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. So that DMV area is the region I sort of represent. And even though I'm sure y'all have sort of realized with online school and this being virtual, there are definitely a lot of challenges with trying to organize events or do things virtually. But there are a couple cool things that I've done as an alumni rep and that the Alumni Association has done in total. So I and a couple other NSLI alumni representatives worked together to host a language challenge in the month of April. So we got over 200 people getting involved with learning languages during quarantine. I know other people have hosted webinars, they've done Instagram lives and basically spreading the word about NSLI, but also really engaging with other NSLI alumni and making sure that you know, we have those connections. I know people who have gotten internships or who have found things through the Alumni Association. So it's definitely a really, really important part of NSLI and is one of the main reasons I applied as well. There's so many benefits of joining the Alumni Association, such as professional development, networking opportunities, and connecting with alumni in your area. It's definitely a really, really important part of NSLI. And yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Great. Thank you, Tejas. So we Hosh Gilden is you all to apply for the program. And so hopefully that really sold it to you that you would want to go on the program with all of Teja's experience talking about it. But I'll get into a little bit of more of the application so you know what to expect when you're applying to the program. So here are the components of the NSLI application. It is a little bit of a larger application, kind of if you think about a college application, if there are any of you juniors or seniors that are thinking about that, it's a little similar to that. So there are a few different parts of it. The first is personal information. So your contact information. We want to know your prior language experience. So we would, if you are accepted, we would be able to put you in the right program. A written portion. So we do have 3 essays. We have a letter that would go to your host family talking about yourself. And we also want to know why you want to learn this language. So whether it be Turkish or any other language, why do you want to learn this language? And how do you think you would use this into the future? How would this benefit you? Because this is a scholarship at the end of the day. So we would hope that you would continue to use this language and use this opportunity to its fullest. So we asked some questions about that, and we want to get to know you and know why you're interested. And then we require a parent statement or a guardian statement. So someone that you live with that can, or that's, your guardian that can speak on your behalf, and a recommendation as well. So just one recommendation. And this could be from a teacher. It could also be from a different group, like a leadership group or something, but an adult figure that can speak on your maturity and your readiness to go on this program overseas. And then also, like I said, we do have a 2.5 GPA requirement. So we do require an official transcript to be able to determine that you have over a 2.5 GPA. There are a few other things as well, like talking about any clubs or activities that you do after school or extracurriculars, things like that. So give yourself some time when you're considering applying and filling out the application. Give yourself some time to be able to go over it because it takes a little bit of time. And finally, the deadline. So our application deadline is November 5th, 2020 at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So big stress on Eastern time. I know a lot of you are all across the country, so it's very strict 4 o'clock Eastern time deadline. So if you do want to apply, you still have some time, so that's great. You have a couple weeks to think about it and to start your application. And then also our parent statements and the recommendation isn't due until a week after the student application is due. So they have a little bit more time to complete their part of the application. And then, so what happens next? So you turn in the application, you did it all, congratulations. Our semifinal, we have a semifinalist round, so those notifications will come out in December, usually early December to mid-December. If you are a finalist, if you apply to the academic year, you will, as a semifinalist, you will get an interview. So this year, all interviews are virtual interviews. Usually we have in-person interviews. This year they're virtual, and only some of the students applying to summer, only some of the semifinalists applying to summer programs will get interviews, just because we don't have the capacity to do it in a virtual setting for everyone. So that will happen in January to March of 2021. And then finally, the final notifications will come on a rolling basis, so throughout March and April of 2021. And then if you are accepted, in the summer, you would go on the program, usually mid to late June. I believe for the Turkish program, it's about like maybe the 20th of June or something like that. But obviously they do change from year to year, but usually late June for the Turkish program. And then academic year would be anywhere from sometime in August into mid-September. So it'd be something like that. And of course, For the summer program, it would be about 6 weeks after is when you would come back from the program. Academic year is 8 to 10 months. So a much longer time. We like to say that the summer is like a sprint and academic year is more like a marathon. So you can kind of think of it like that. So we do have some resources if you want some further learning, further deep diving into the program. Of course, go to our website. That's how you apply to the program. It's nsli4youth.org. And we can, Tejas, can you write that in the comments for them too, so they can have that. And then if you want some more stories, like Tejas' story, go to nsliyinteractive.org. So that is a bunch of curated stories by alums talking about their experiences on the program. So if you want to hear about more Turkish experiences, you can go and just search for Turkish and look those up. If you want to hear about other programs, you can do the same with the other programs. But they're really interesting to hear like the different perspectives of the students. And then also you can go, there are several other programs for high school students that range in location and function. Our program is the only one that is language focused, but there are other cultural focused programs. So you can check those out at exchanges.state.gov and also studyabroad.state.gov for those. And those are all scholarship programs like similar to our program. Finally, if you're on Facebook or your parents are on Facebook, you can go to Ask NSLIY Alumni Facebook group. This is a really, really helpful Facebook group if you have a very specific question that, you might not be able to find by searching. We have a ton of alumni that monitor this group, Tejas being one of them. And if you have a question, you'll definitely get a response from one of our alumni. Being able to hopefully point you in the right direction or give you an answer to your question. So definitely check that out as well. And of course, we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those things, and we post daily. So you can utilize that as well. You utilize our social media channels. Okay, so that's our presentation. Thanks for everybody for listening in. And of course, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if we can't answer them there, we can always get back to you with more information. And here is our email and phone if you do think of anything at a later time. So I don't know if you guys want to read off the questions, or we can just check from the chat and answer any of them.
Hi, this is Demet. Maybe I can start with the first question.
Yeah, sure.
I posted some questions on the chat box, and there were others there. But
Okay.
First of all, thank you so much for introducing this wonderful program. I'm a little bit outside of the age range. I wish I knew about it way earlier. But I wanted to mention that most of our students are Turkish Americans, and some aren't, but most have at least one Turkish parent. So this was my question, but I saw that it was also posted in the chat box as well. If they choose to go to Turkey with this program, can they stay with their extended families there, or do they have to stay with the families that you identify for them?
Mm-hmm.
And also, how many students do you accept? And another one is what other countries are there in the program?
Sure. Okay. I'll answer a few of those from the admin standpoint. So yes, we do require students to live with the host family that the program chooses for them, just because logistical things and the such. We do also recommend that because we do want them like learning in their own environment, that they're focused on their language study, and so in that way, we would want them to be with the host family and in the host community, in this case, Bursa. And for your second question, I'm sorry, I know you asked about other languages. I can give you that. What was the second question?
Is there a quota? How many students, up to,
right.
how many students can you accept?
Yeah, so I believe in Tejas's group you had how many students did you have with you, Tejas?
We had 12.
12. Uh-huh. Of course, so we actually didn't have the Turkish program for a few years. So that was the inaugural program starting back up. So it started a little smaller. But every year it does change and it kind of depends on the demand as well. So, we try to proportion our programs with the demand that students have. So if we do get a lot of people applying to a Turkish program, we would definitely take note of that. So it depends. Usually in all, our scholarships are about 650 or so. The application acceptance rate is 15 to 20%. And sorry, our languages are, let's see if I can get them all in one go. Arabic, Chinese, Mandarin, Korean, Hindi, Indonesian, Turkish, Persian, Russian. I think I got them all. Yep. Those are all of our languages. We have 8 languages, and they're all deemed critical by the State Department, meaning that there aren't enough speakers of them in America.
I put a question also in the chat box, and you also answered my other question, which was how do they determine the languages? But since they're critical, that makes sense.
Yes.
My question is there orientation in DC for all program participants? And I also have a follow-on, and it's, do all the participants fly with a program coordinator or by themselves?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'll answer the second question, and then Tejas can kind of talk about the orientation with all of you. So yes, all participants will go to one central location in the United States to do the orientation, the pre-departure orientation. So they won't be with a coordinator when they're flying to the meeting location, but from there they will be with a resident director. So the resident director is usually an American who knows the language fluently and is with the students the entire time. So if the students do have any problems or any questions, the resident director is there for them. All students are given a little flip phone so they can call the resident director at any time if there's an emergency, of course, or any issues. The resident director is there for them. So yeah, they will be chaperoned to the host country with that resident director or another staff member. So Tejas, do you want to talk about your pre-departure orientation? Where was it? What was that like?
Yeah, sure. So, like Brian said, it depends on like what organization your NSLI program is supervised by. But mine was in DC, and it was, I think there were like people who were going to China and Russia and Turkey all in one big group, and then we did little breakout groups as well. But basically, that orientation really just takes you through like different like cultural tidbits of your specific language, as well as like tips and tricks on how to I guess get by and how to be independent in your host country. So they definitely prepare you. And also my organization gave us, and I think every organization gives their students a list of documents to like sort of read. Like for us, we had 1,000 Turkish words to know, or Turkish cultural things to know. So I think people are really well prepared through those programs before they go to their country.
Yeah, definitely. So it does depend on which program you're in and which organization is organizing the program. That depends on where you are in the United States and your pre-departure. I would say the good majority are either in DC or New York, or just outside of New York. I see that there's another question here. If you want me to cover that.
Next. How do you determine the city in which the students will reside in?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It really does depend. We have moved around with the program. It was in Ankara at one point. I believe it was in Izmir at one point, or on the Mediterranean, but it has moved around. But however, the organization that is organizing this Turkish program, the current Turkish program, it has roots with the school, the Turkish school in Bursa. I believe Tejas, you can talk a little more about that. This year, we also have an application for the academic year program. This is our first time since I believe about 2015 that we're doing that program. So that will potentially be in a different location. That's still up in the air, the location that will be in. But similar, whatever location it will be in, they have a good relationship with a language school in that specific city, and also they know the host families really well in that city, so they've vetted the host families that the students will be living in. But Tejas, why don't you talk just a little bit about where you were with your language school?
Sure. So in Bursa, Turkey, there's this language school. It's a branch of Ankara University called Tomer, which I used to know what it stands for. I forgot, but it's basically a language school, not just for Turkish, but for a variety of different languages. So there are Turkish people learning English. There are Turkish people learning German or French or Spanish there as well. It was a pretty small school. I know other students do theirs at like universities and things like that, but ours was like a pretty small building, just in the center of Turkey.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The next question: what are the age requirements for the languages? Is it different for each language?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with all of our languages, we are able to, we accept complete beginners of the language, so complete novices all the way up to advanced speakers. So there's no age requirement for any specific language. Really what we want to know is, why do you want to learn the language? Why is it important to you? And how will you use it in the future? How will you use this opportunity into the future? So yep, no language requirements.
Mm-hmm. So for in each country, could you also talk about, as far as what are the cultural aspects, and also what is a daily routine? How much of the day is spent on languages, and how much of the day is spent on actual cultural aspects, like the history, the politics, those things?
Yeah, definitely. Just one quick thing from Demet, I believe. You said no age requirements, but I said language requirements, not age. Of course, age is 15 to 18. So just answering that one there. And so, yeah, with the breakdown of the day, I believe is what you said. So the cultural events and language events. Tejas, why don't you kind of talk quickly about your day, like an average day that you had in Bursa, going to classes and afterwards. I think that probably may paint like a really good picture for everyone.
Yeah, so I lived in a suburb kind of Bursa, like an hour, I want to say, away from the city center, about like 45 minutes away from my language school. So my journey was a little bit different, but basically I woke up at around like 7, and I took a bus and then the metro to get to my language school. It wasn't complicated at all. My host family was able to walk me through it. And then I did language classes from around 8 to 1, basically. And then from there, we got lunch. There were local shops around. NSLI gives you a stipend, so you don't necessarily have to spend your own pocket money from home if you're not able to. The stipend should cover lunch and everything. And so we ate lunch, and then basically after that was unstructured. I know it varies from program to program, but for us, basically, we had every afternoon free, and that was where you could sort of learn a little bit more about the history and the culture of Bursa, where we were like, a lot of us stayed with our host families, and our host families sort of had things for us. But my host parents were both doctors, so they worked the whole day, and so I was able to sort of go around the city with some of the Turkish friends I made there. And so we went to museums and learned other things. Sometimes they planned like cultural excursions for us during the afternoon as well. So that's sort of like a typical day.
Okay. One question, can you do this program more than once if you want to learn separate languages?
So, great question. I guess you could potentially do it twice. So, if you do the academic year, you can't apply for a summer program. You can only do the academic year. But if you first do the summer program, you can apply for an academic year-long program. So in that way, you could do two of the programs. It's pretty uncommon to switch languages from summer to academic year. However, if you made a really good reason for why you did want to switch, or why these two languages are interconnected in some way, you could certainly do that.
Okay. What is the best way to convince parents or guardians that it is a good program to participate in?
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, the cost is great. I would say, it's a scholarship program, and so it's no cost to fly to Turkey or whatever country and learn the language, be in the culture. That's always a really good selling point. We do have a lot of information on like safety and security, which obviously all parents have those questions. Is really important to cover. So I would definitely check out our website under the parent tab, or have your parents check it out. And it has a lot of frequently asked questions that parents may have. But I also like to turn it over to Tejas. What did you say to your parents? Like, and if you had to convince your parents, how did you do that?
Yeah, for my parents, it was definitely a process where, like, even in November when the application was due, like parents have to write sort of like a statement, basically saying, I approve my child to go to this program. And so they were wary about me going to the program at the beginning. So I was like, just write the letter, let's submit it, and then if I get in, we can decide. So even at that point, they were very wary of me going. But I think like two things really convinced them. First was the fact that the program has gone on and on and on, like for years and years and years without really any issues. And I think, reading the stories on Nestle Interactive of so many people going there, like sort of comforted them a little bit. And I really think like with Turkish in particular, like Brian was talking about before, they had canceled the program for a while because of unrest, and then they brought it back first for my year. And so they were initially wary about that, but I think sort of the fact that Nestle was willing to cancel a program with like sort of that safety in mind proved to them that Nestle was really, really focused on safety and really focused on ensuring that everybody, was going to be safe there. And I think like definitely one of the bigger things was when my resident director sort of emailed them. He emailed each family individually, and that definitely really eased their fears as well. So Nestle provides so much support, and I think like Brian said, like reading the stories on Nestle Interactive or looking at the website definitely sort of helped my parents.
Yeah, and I just posted in the group chat. We had a webinar a few weeks back on safety and security on program. This is for every program, but you can definitely show that to your parents, or check that out, and that will give you some more insight too. But a lot of different resources there for you to learn more information about that.
Also, with the program, you have the summer program and a year-long program. For both program, on the year-long program, students are able to get credit. Are they able to get credit for the summer program as well?
That really depends. So, a great question. It depends on your home institution. So, your high school, you would have to talk with your guidance counselor, or your administration at your school, to see if they would allow that. So we aren't allowed to give that. However, you will take an OPI, oral proficiency interview. If you do know the language, you would take a pre-OPI, a pre-program OPI, and then everyone takes a post-program OPI to see where you are in your speaking abilities in the language. So you can a lot of times use that to show to either high schools or colleges to test out of the language or go up into like a higher level of the language. So it really does depend on your high school. So talk to your guidance counselor.
Okay, so if a student, for instance, was 18 years old, just graduated and took a gap year, the person would still be eligible for the program, correct?
It depends on the age. So definitely check the website to see the age range. We do have a lot of students that do academic year as a gap year. The thing is that you have to be in high school when you apply to the program. So you can apply as a senior and then take a gap year the following year. However, for this student, if you are outside of the age range, I definitely, and you're going into college next year, I definitely recommend that you check out CLS, the Critical Language Scholarship, and I will put in the website here. This is basically a very similar program to our summer program, but for college students as well. And it's 3 months in the summer, or sorry, I believe 8 weeks or so in the summer. So I'll put that in there as well. And this goes for everyone too. If you're not able to study in high school, certainly we hope you apply to the program. But if you can't do it in high school, you can always do it in college as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for this presentation, Brian and Tejas. Sorry, Tejas. Thank you for this presentation. I know I learned a lot because I didn't even know that it existed. And I'm outside of the range, but I will be passing this on to other people that have children between 15 and 18 years old. It was very informative and insightful. For everyone in the Young Cultural Ambassadors Program, I would just like to give you a couple of reminders. The one reminder is that on October 23rd at 7 p.m., there is another session. It's Civil Society and Conflict Management. Also tomorrow, if you're able to attend, and Brian and Tejas, if you would like to attend as well, there's a cultural webinar series with ATADC. It is about the 16th century Ottoman naval admiral. All the information is also on ATADC's website, on Facebook. And lastly, October 24th at 2 p.m., there's a Power of Media session with Turkish American TV for all the young cultural ambassadors. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, and I hope that you learned something from this session. Have a great night and see you on Friday, unless you can attend on the 22nd.
Thank you, Shayla. Thank you, everyone. We hope that you consider applying.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Tejas.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Teşekkür.
Biz teşekkür ederiz.